On the second day of the four-day truce between Israel and Hamas, a second group of hostages had been released from Gaza comprising 13 Israelis and 4 foreign nationals. Nepali student Bipin Joshi was not among those released in the second prisoner swap. The first day of the four-day truce between Israel and Hamas had ended Friday with the swapping of 24 Hamas-held hostages and 39 Palestinian detainees. Good morning, I'm Prarambha Dahal. Let's begin with the main stories. Diplomatic efforts for the release of Nepali student Bipin Joshi from Hamas captivity continue as he was not included in the second prisoner swap. Distribution of 25,000 rupees in first installment for the construction of temporary shelters in Jalakot begins. Various organizations actively involved in relief operations. The Central Blood Bank reports scarcity of blood, urges people to participate in blood donation campaigns. And Manchester City lose Premier League top spot to Arsenal in a 1-1 draw against Liverpool. Erling Haaland hits a brand new record. Nepali national Bipin Joshi, who is being held hostage by Hamas militants, has not been released in the second prisoner exchange. Hamas has released 13 Israeli nationals and 4 Thai nationals in the second prisoner exchange under the 4-day ceasefire deal. The Nepali ambassador to Israel, Kantipur, said that the release of Nepali student Bipin Joshi, who has been held hostage by Hamas militants, has been prioritized and that diplomatic efforts are underway for the same. Ambassador Rizal said that the list of hostages that Hamas will release is issued only a short while in advance. Therefore, they were uncertain if Bipin is among the 50 hostages who will be freed within the 4-day ceasefire. 1,200 people, including 10 Nepali students, had been killed in Israel in the attack by Hamas militants on the 7th of October last month. Meanwhile, more than 200 people, including Nepali student Bipin Joshi, had been held hostage. The District Administration Office, Jalakot, will start distributing budget to the concerned municipalities and rural municipalities for the construction of temporary shelters beginning today. The local authority has preparations and efforts are underway to distribute 25,000 rupees to each families whose houses have been completely destroyed. The authority had started distributing 200,000 rupees to families who had lost their members in the earthquake since Tuesday last week. According to the latest data, 84 families have already been provided compensation so far. Meanwhile, the government has yet to construct temporary shelters for the victims of the earthquake in Jalakot. Around 100 temporary shelters are being constructed under the initiation of various political parties. 10 earthquake victims have already died in Jalakot because of absence of proper food and shelter amid the winter season. The victims have been facing additional difficulties as, despite the rise in the number of patients with ailments including flu, pneumonia and asthma, access to health services have remained negligible. The Central Blood Bank has said that they have been unable to meet the demand for fresh blood and its components as well. The country has a demand of 1,200 units of blood on a daily basis, while Kathmandu Valley alone requires 350 units of blood. However, because of lack of blood donors amid the festive season, the NAT has reported difficulty in fulfilling the demand. The Nepal Red Cross Society says that participation of every individual in blood donation campaigns must be ensured to address the issue. According to Nepal Red Cross, the scarcity of blood can be addressed if only 2% of the country's total population donates blood. Koshi Province government has tabled a bill to replace the ordinance issued earlier to unveil the budget for the current fiscal year at the Provincial Assembly. Koshi Province Chief Minister Kedar Karki, who is also overseeing the portfolio of the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Planning in the provincial government, tabled the bill to replace the ordinance issued earlier to unveil the budget for the ongoing fiscal year at the Provincial Assembly. The bill replaces the ordinance introduced by former Chief Minister Hikmat Kumar Karki in September. The 36.74 billion rupees replacement bill has allocated 12.68 billion rupees for recurrent spending, which consists of regular expenses such as salaries, remunerations and allowances. It has set aside 20.38 billion rupees for capital spending, 10 million rupees for financial management and 3.66 billion rupees for transfer to local levels. The province government had introduced the budget for this fiscal year through the ordinance. In August, the province entered a budget holiday after the deadline for the budget ordinance either to be endorsed as it is or be replaced with a new bill ended without taking the needed action. Chief Minister Karki, who assumed the post with the support of main opposition CPNUML and 8 members of his party, has yet to give a full shape to the Council of Ministers. Meanwhile, CPNUML has already withdrawn its support lent to form the province government. The government has announced of encouraging use of electric vehicles through its policies and programs and budget on several occasions. The Ministry of Energy 2 years ago had announced that all the entities under it will use electric vehicles. On the contrary, the government has geared up to increase tax on electric vehicles, citing impact on government revenue because of the increase in import of the EVs. 21% of Nepal's trade deficit, which has reached 1.4 trillion rupees, is because of petroleum products. The government has a policy to promote the use of EVs to minimize the country's trade deficit. The government has a target of increasing the use of EVs by 25% within the year 2025 and achieving 90% private and 60% public vehicles by 2013. Meanwhile, experts have blamed the government for its discouraging plan that includes an increased tax on electric vehicles. Former Minister for Finance, Yuvraj Khatiwada, through the budget of the Nepali fiscal year 2077-78, had imposed up to 80% tax on electric and hybrid vehicles. The tax rates had been revised later following widespread criticisms. Tax on electric vehicles that are above 100 kilowatts had increased last fiscal year. The government this fiscal year has geared up to impose up to 10% tax on electric vehicles that are above 50 kilowatts. Electric vehicle entrepreneurs have also become agitated with the government's unstable policy. 1,481 electric vehicles between 51 and 100 kilowatts worth 4.3 billion rupees have been imported within the first 4 months of the ongoing fiscal year. The investors of hydroelectricity have also been discontent with the government's plan to increase tax on electric vehicles. The pollution caused by excessive use of petroleum products has been contributing in climate change as well. Therefore, the promotion of the use of electric vehicles through green energy has intensified in recent times. Nepal has also adopted such policy, however, it is yet to be implemented. In our Public Voice segment, we have asked in several provinces regarding ways to promote the electric vehicles. Let us now take a look at what they had to say.
सडक खण्डहरु छ त्यो चाहिँ विद्युतीय सवारी साधनको लागि चाहिँ उपयुक्त छैन सरकारले सर्वप्रथम चाहिँ त्यस सडकहरुमा चाहिँ जोड दिनुपर्छ
जुनसुकै सरकारी कार्यालयहरुले पनि विद्युतीय सवारी साधन नै खरिद गर्नुपर्छ
विद्युतीय साधनमा लगाउने कर चाहिँ छुट गरिदियो भने
सरकारले अनुदानका कार्यक्रमहरुलाई पनि अलि प्रोत्साहन दिनुपर्छ
विभिन्न ठाउँहरुमा चार्जिङ स्टेशनको संख्यालाई चाहिँ बढाउनुपर्छ
जहाँ विद्युतै पुगेको छैन अब त्यहाँ विद्युतीय गाडीको प्रवर्धनको लागि भन्दा पनि सरकारले पहिला चाहिँ विद्युत पुगाउनतर्फ ध्यान दियो भने चाहिँ यो कार्यक्रम प्रभावकारी हुन्छ
जति पनि पुरानो गाडीहरु छ त्यसलाई चेन्ज गरेर इलेक्ट्रोनिक भनौं न इलेक्ट्रोनिक गाडीहरुको चाहिँ एकदम सुविधा गरिदिनु पर्यो
विद्युतको चाहिँ उत्पादनको मात्रा बढाउनु पर्यो
कर छुट गर्न सक्यो भने त्यो नै उपयुक्त हुन्छ विद्युतीय सवारीको लागि पर्याप्त आवश्यक परेको वस्तुहरुलाई चाहिँ पर्याप्त रूपमा सरकारले प्रवर्धन गर्नु पर्यो
पुराना गाडीहरुलाई चाहिँ विस्थापित गरेर हटाएर नयाँ चाहिँ विद्युतीय गाडीहरु प्रयोग गर्दाखेरि उपयुक्त हुन्छ
राजस्वहरु अलिकति कम गर्नु पर्यो कम हुँदाखेरि के छ भने सबै मान्छेले निकाल्न लोभिन्छन्
कम्पनीले ठाउँ ठाउँमा यसको लागि चार्ज गर्ने यसको लागि गराइदियो भने झनै राम्रो हुनेछ
It is now time for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
The question is, what is the reason behind the delay in construction of temporary shelters for the victims of earthquake? Your options are A, government's irresponsibility, B, lack of resources, and C, procedural delay. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your option A, B or C, and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. Time now for the international news. A second group of hostages released from Gaza, comprising 13 Israelis and 4 foreign nationals, arrived in Israel late Saturday, according to Israeli officials and a CNN team on the ground. Around the same time, 39 Palestinian detainees and prisoners were released from Israeli jails, the authorities have said. Hamas had delayed the second exchange over a dispute about the prisoners and aid for Gaza that was resolved through mediation, according to Qatar, which helped negotiate the 4-day truce and exchange agreement between the two sides. There were emotional scenes as the first wave of Israeli hostages were reunited with their families. On the West Bank, there also was jubilation as Palestinian prisoners returned home. Meanwhile, the Israeli military said it is still detaining the director of Gaza's largest hospital. Israel accuses Hamas of using Al-Shifa hospital for combat and command purpose, which Hamas and the hospital authorities have denied. Hamas's attacks on the 7th of October killed 1,200 people, with about 240 taken hostage. Since then, Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry has said more than 14,500 people have been killed in Israel's retaliatory campaign. The first batch of humanitarian aid supplies arrived in Gaza City in the northern Gaza Strip on Saturday, the second day of the 4-day temporary ceasefire in the war-torn Palestinian enclave. The supplies carried by the convoy of 3 trucks that arrived in Gaza City are part of humanitarian aid supplies entering the Gaza Strip through the Rafah border crossing from Egypt since the temporary ceasefire took effect. This batch of aid supplies mainly included rice, sugar, flour and medical equipment. Hamas on Saturday confirmed that a total of 340 trucks loaded with aid supplies had entered Gaza Strip through Rafah crossing since Friday. It noted that 65 of those arrived in northern Gaza, becoming the first batch of aid supplies entering the area since the latest round of Palestinian-Israeli conflicts broke on the 7th of October. An Egyptian official said 7 trucks carrying fuel and 4 loaded with natural gas entered Gaza on Saturday. Previously, Israel banned the entry of any fuel into the Gaza Strip, alleging that the fuel could be used by Hamas for military purpose. The humanitarian situation in Gaza City is severe after a large number of communities have been razed during relentless Israeli bombardments, leaving local residents virtually in dire need of all life necessities. Israeli troops have been conducting airstrikes and ground offensives in Gaza since October 7 in retaliation for a surprise attack by Hamas. Israel said some 240 hostages, mostly Israelis, were taken to Gaza by Hamas. Rescue work to save 41 workers trapped in a tunnel in India's Uttarakhand state has been delayed by at least 4 to 5 days because the drilling machine broke down inside the tunnel. Rescuers will begin digging manually once the faulty part is removed. The workers have been stuck inside the tunnel for 2 weeks after a portion of it collapsed because of a landslide. The operation has been challenging because of the presence of rocks, stones and metal inside the debris. Rescuers have to resort to drilling by hand because the auger keeps getting stuck on pieces of metal that have been mixed in with the debris, and say it would be better to switch to manual drilling instead of waiting for a replacement machine. A section of the 4.5-kilometer Silkyara tunnel in the Indian Himalayas caved in on the 12th of November. Contact was established with the trapped men shortly thereafter, and they have been receiving oxygen, food and water ever since. Rescuers were just 9 meters from breaking through to the workers before the auger broke. Pushkar Singh Dhami, Chief Minister of Uttarakhand State, told reporters on Saturday that the damaged drilling machine would be taken out by this morning, allowing rescuers to continue digging manually. And now, before we wrap up, here's a look into the top stories one more time. Diplomatic efforts for the release of Nepali student Bipin Joshi from Hamas captivity continue as he was not included in the second prisoner swap. Distribution of 25,000 rupees in first installment for the construction of temporary shelters in Jajalkot begins. Various organizations actively involved in relief operations. The Central Blood Bank reports scarcity of blood, urges people to participate in blood donation campaigns. And Manchester City lose Premier League top spot to Arsenal in a 1-1 draw against Liverpool. Erling Haaland hits a brand new record. That is all for the moment. Our next news bulletin is at 6 p.m. Thank you for staying with us. Have a beautiful day ahead.